The diner went silent after the second shot. She was on the ground, bleeding, covering him completely. An ex-Marine herself, she knew exactly what she was doing and exactly what it might cost her. The gunman fled. The young Marine she had just saved tried to help her up, but she told him to check the others first. That is who she was. 72 hours later, her entire neighborhood heard them coming. Boots, dozens of them, marching in perfect formation down her quiet street. When she opened the door and saw their faces, she understood warriors never forget their own. But what happened next went far beyond gratitude. It went to the very heart of what it means to serve, to sacrifice, and to refuse to let another warrior fall even when the war is supposed to be over. If you believe some people are born to protect others, drop a comment telling us where you are watching from. This story will remind you why heroes walk among us every single day. But to understand why Kate Morrison moved that fast, why her body knew exactly what to do before her mind could catch up, we need to go back 3 days. The bell above the emergency room entrance chimed at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday that felt like it would never end. Kate Morrison had been at St. Catherine's Hospital in Asheville, North Carolina, for 14 hours straight. Her scrubs were wrinkled and stained with evidence of the kind of shift that leaves marks on your soul, not just your clothes. 3 cardiac arrests since she clocked in at 4 that morning. The first 2 made it. The third did not. His name was Jason Rodriguez. 47 years old, father of 3, collapsed at his daughter's soccer game. While cheering from the sidelines, his wife Maria brought him in, screaming, begging, demanding miracles Kate could not provide. She tried anyway. She always tried. For 38 minutes, Kate performed chest compressions while Dr. Geach. Patricia Warner called codes and nurses rotated in to spell her when her arms gave out. 38 minutes of fighting death with nothing but technique and refusal to accept the inevitable. The monitor stayed flat. The pupils stayed fixed. The man stayed gone. Time of death at 18 in the morning. Kate stripped off her gloves in the break room afterward and sat staring at the wall where someone had taped a motivational poster about perseverance. The coffee in the pot had been sitting since midnight. She poured a cup anyway and wrapped both hands around it like the warmth could chase away the cold that had nothing to do with temperature. Dr. Warner found her there 20 minutes later. The older woman had been an attending physician for 23 years and had learned to recognize the particular stillness that meant a nurse was replaying everything in her head, searching for the moment where a different choice might have changed the outcome. Go home, Morrison. You have been here since yesterday afternoon. You look dead on your feet. Kate did not look up from her coffee. Just need a minute. I am fine. Warner sat down across from her. You are not fine. You never are after we lose one. His wife is in the chapel. His children are with their grandmother. You did everything humanly possible. Kate finally met her eyes. His daughter is 12. She watched him collapse. She is going to remember that moment for the rest of her life. Warner reached across the table and squeezed Kate's hand once firmly, then stood. That is not your burden to carry. Go home. Sleep. Come back tomorrow when you can actually help someone instead of torturing yourself over the ones we cannot save. After Warner left, Kate sat alone in the break room for another 10 minutes. The coffee went cold in her hands. She did not drink it. She just needed something to hold on to. At St. Catherine's, everyone knew Kate Morrison had the best save rate in the emergency department. They knew her hands stayed steady during codes when everyone else was losing their composure. They knew she could start an IV line on a coding patient in under 30 seconds, could intubate in the dark, could keep someone alive through sheer force of will when the odds said otherwise. What they did not know was where she learned those skills. They did not know about the 2 tours in Afghanistan. They did not know about the 47 Marines she saved in a medical tent where mortars fell close enough to shake surgical instruments off the tray. They did not know about the one she could not save, the one who bled out in her arms while she refused to stop CPR even after it was obviously over. Kate had worked at St. Catherine's for 6 years. In that time, she had attended exactly 0 staff happy hours. She declined every invitation to birthday parties, baby showers, holiday gatherings. She showed up for her shifts, did her job with devastating competence, and went home alone to a house where she lived with her ghosts in private. The other nurses called her distant. The residents called her intimidating. The attending physicians called her invaluable. Nobody called her friend. Nurse Jessica Chen tried once during Kate's 2nd year at the hospital, caught her in the parking lot after a shift, and suggested grabbing dinner, just the two of them, no pressure. Kate had looked at her with those flat, careful eyes and said thank you, but no. Jessica never asked again. The message was clear. Kate Morrison did not do relationships. She did connections. She did not let anyone close enough to matter. It was easier that way. Safer. You cannot lose people you never let yourself care about. Kate changed out of her scrubs in the locker room. Her left leg ached the way it always did after long shifts. She had been standing for 14 hours on a femur that carried shrapnel from an IED blast 8 years ago. The orthopedic surgeon who reviewed her x-rays during her hospital onboarding had stared at the images for a long time before asking how she was even walking. Kate told him she was used to it. He offered to schedule surgery to remove the fragments. She declined. Some wounds you carry on purpose. The drive from the hospital to her neighborhood took 20 minutes through downtown Asheville. Kate's truck was a 15-year-old Ford F-150 with a dent in the driver's side door from a parking lot incident she never bothered to fix. The radio stayed off. She did not want music or news or voices. She wanted the silence that came after surviving another shift without falling apart. Traffic was light at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday in July. Summer heat made the air thick and heavy. Mountains rose in the distance, the Blue Ridge Range. That was the reason she had chosen Asheville when she left the Navy. She grew up here. These mountains meant home in a way that mattered when everything else felt foreign. She could have driven straight to her house. Should have. She was exhausted down to her bones, the kind of tired that makes your vision blur and your thoughts slow. But Jason Rodriguez's face kept appearing in her mind. His wife's screams kept echoing in her ears. She needed something to reset the day before she went home to stare at her walls and wait for sleep that probably would not come. Maggie's Diner sat on a corner lot 3 miles from Kate's house. It was the kind of place that existed in every small town in America. Red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floor, neon sign in the window that buzzed slightly and needed repair. The menu had not changed in 40 years. The coffee was strong and cheap and came in ceramic mugs heavy enough to double as weapons if necessary. Kate had been coming here after difficult shifts for 2 years. Nobody bothered her. Nobody asked questions. She could sit in a booth and drink coffee and exist without having to explain herself. The bell above the door chimed when she pushed inside. The air conditioning hit her face, a shock after the July heat. The smell of coffee and bacon grease and pie filled the small space. It was 3:14 in the afternoon. The lunch rush was over. The dinner crowd had not arrived yet. That in-between time when diners feel like sanctuaries. Margaret Sullivan stood behind the counter pouring coffee for Frank Chen, who sat on his usual stool reading the Asheville Citizen-Times sports section. Maggie was 67 years old and had owned this place for 43 years. She knew the name of every regular and the story of half the people in Asheville. Her hands were weathered from decades of work, but steady as she poured. Frank was 71. Vietnam veteran, 1st Cavalry Division, served in 68 and 69, and came home to a country that did not want to hear about it. He came to Maggie's every afternoon at 3. Drank coffee, read the paper, did not bother anyone. He and Kate had never spoken beyond basic pleasantries, but she recognized the careful way he held himself, the way his eyes tracked movement even when he seemed focused on his newspaper. Old soldiers always know each other. Beth Carter moved between tables with practiced efficiency. She was 45, had been waitressing here for 18 years, putting 2 kids through college on tips and determination. Her smile was genuine, even at the end of a long shift. She had that gift some people have of making strangers feel welcome without being intrusive. In the corner booth by the window sat Martha and George Hollis. Married 44 years. They came every Tuesday and split a piece of lemon meringue pie. George always let Martha have the last bite. They held hands across the table the way people do when affection has become as natural as breathing. 2 construction workers in dusty Carhartt jackets occupied the booth near the bathrooms. The Brennan brothers, Mike and Tommy, arguing about the Carolina Panthers' prospects for the upcoming season. Their voices carried across the small space, but nobody minded. This was that kind of place. Kate slid into her usual booth in the back. Not the corner booth that belonged to Frank. Not the window booth too exposed. The booth with a clear view of the entrance and the kitchen door and both exits. Habits from another life that never quite faded. Maggie appeared with a coffee pot and a mug without Kate having to order. She set the mug down and filled it, steam rising. Rough shift Han. Kate managed a small smile. Aren't they all? Maggie squeezed her shoulder, once brief and maternal, then moved on. She understood that some people come to diners to be left alone with their thoughts. The coffee was hot enough to hurt. Kate wrapped both hands around the mug and let the heat ground her in the present moment. She was halfway through her first sip when the bell chimed again. The man who entered wore desert camouflage fatigues that still carried dust in the creases. Marine Corps insignia on the chest. Corporal, rank on the collar. Duffel bag slung over one shoulder, worn at the seams from hard use. He was young, maybe 23, but his eyes were older. Much older. Kate recognized those eyes. She had seen them in her mirror for years after coming home. Corporal Marcus Hayes moved through the diner like he was navigating hostile territory. His gaze swept the room, cataloging exits and potential threats before he even approached the counter. His hand drifted toward his hip, twice muscle memory, reaching for a sidearm that was not there anymore. When the air conditioning kicked on with a sudden hum, he flinched just slightly before catching himself. He took the counter stool 3 down from Frank and set his duffel bag carefully against the leg. When Beth approached with a menu and her warmest welcome home smile, he stared at the laminated pages like the words were written in a foreign language. Coffee, he said finally. Black. And apple pie, I guess. Beth beamed at him. Coming right up, sweetheart. Welcome home. Hayes tried to return the smile, but it died before reaching his eyes. His hands rested on the counter, fingers drumming an irregular pattern. 48 hours, stateside, Kate guessed. Maybe less. Still adjusting to fluorescent lights that did not flicker before explosions. Still waiting for threats that were not coming. Still trying to remember how to exist in a place where people smiled at you instead of trying to kill you. Kate knew she should look away. Mind her own business. Let the young Marine work through his re-entry in private the way she had done. But something kept her attention fixed on him. Something about the particular quality of his tension, the way he held himself like he was waiting for impact. She could walk over to the counter, could say something. Thank you for your service felt meaningless. I know what you are going through felt presumptuous. I was there too, felt like opening doors she had spent 8 years keeping sealed shut. So she stayed in her booth and drank her coffee and let him be. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for a fellow warrior is give them space to figure out who they are now that the war is over. She had no idea she was looking at the man she would take a bullet for in less than 8 minutes. The apple pie arrived. Hayes picked up his fork and moved it mechanically toward his mouth, chewing without tasting, swallowing without enjoying. Going through the motions of normal, while his nervous system screamed that nothing about this was normal. Kate's leg throbbed. She shifted in the booth, trying to ease the pressure on the old injury. The shrapnel had been there so long it felt like part of her anatomy. A permanent reminder of the cost of caring too much, of trying to save people in places where death came easy. She glanced at the clock above the counter. 3:17. She should finish her coffee and go home. Sleep if sleep would come. Maybe stare at the ceiling for a few hours instead. Either way, staying here was just delaying the inevitable return to an empty house and memories she could not outrun. Outside the window, a black Dodge Charger pulled into the parking lot. Tinted windows. Engine running longer than necessary before the driver cut it. 3 shadows visible inside, indistinct but present. Kate noticed. Her training noticed. But exhaustion won. She looked back at her coffee. That was her first mistake. The bell above the door chimed again at 3:17 and 40 seconds. The temperature in the diners seemed to drop 10 degrees. 3 men entered wearing ski masks and carrying weapons, and Kate Morrison's coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. Kate's brain performed calculations faster than conscious thought. 3 men, 3 weapons, 6 civilians, including herself, 2 trained fighters maybe. Hayes at the counter, his body already shifting into combat stance even though his sidearm was 8,000 miles away. Frank in the corner, old, but his hands were steady. Everyone else would freeze. She knew this because 8 years ago, in the deserts of Kandahar province, she learned exactly how the human body responds to sudden violence. The Afghan sun beat down on forward operating base Asheville with relentless intensity, turning the medical tent into something that felt like the mouth of hell. Outside gunfire cracked through the air in irregular bursts. Mortars exploded close enough to feel in your chest, close enough to make the surgical instruments rattle on their trays. Inside hospital, Corpsman, 2nd Class Catherine Morrison, was on her 3rd gunshot wound of the day, and her hands remained absolutely steady. The Marine on her table was 19 years old. His name was Lance Corporal James Davidson. He was from Cincinnati, Ohio. He had a girlfriend named Emma, who sent cookies every week, oatmeal raisin, because those were his favorite. Kate knew these things because she made it her business to know. It was easier to fight for someone's life when you remembered they were a person, not just a casualty number. The bullet had torn through his femoral artery. Blood pumped from the wound in rhythmic spurts that matched his heartbeat. Kate had both hands inside the wound, fingers clamped on the artery, applying pressure, while her corpsman assistant prepped the IV lines. Her uniform was soaked red up to the elbows. Sweat dripped into her eyes. She did not blink. Major Rebecca Santos stood at the tent entrance watching Kate work while the ground shook from explosions less than 200 yards away. She had been Kate's commanding officer for 6 months and had seen her in action dozens of times. It never stopped being impressive. Morrison, you have got ice in your veins. Best combat medic I have ever seen. Kate did not look up. She was too focused on keeping pressure exactly where it needed to be, maintaining the precise angle that kept Davidson's blood inside his body instead of pumping out onto the sand. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. Davidson, stay with me. Medevac is 2 minutes out. Think about those cookies Emma sent. Think about going home and eating a whole batch yourself without sharing. Davidson's eyes were wide with pain and fear, but he managed a weak laugh. She always sends too many anyway. Kate smiled, even though he probably could not see it through her focus. That is the spirit. Keep talking to me. Tell me about Emma. His voice was fading, but he tried. Met her sophomore year. Chemistry class. She is terrible at chemistry, but I helped her study. Kate's hands never moved. Sounds like you are a keeper. She is lucky. The medevac helicopter's rotors grew louder overhead. Kate's assistant had 3 units of O-negative ready. Her fingers ached from maintaining pressure, but she did not ease up even slightly. Not until the flight medics were there with a gurney, and proper surgical clamps and the ability to get him to a real operating room. Davidson made it. Kate knew because she tracked every patient. Knew he got surgery at Bagram, got shipped to Landstuhl in Germany, eventually made it home to Cincinnati, where Emma was waiting. That was number 33 on her personal count of lives saved. By the time her second tour ended, that number would reach 47. Major Santos was not exaggerating when she called Kate the best combat medic she had ever seen. Kate Morrison was exceptional at her job. Maybe too exceptional because being that good meant they kept sending her into impossible situations, kept asking her to save people in places where saving people should have been impossible. For 2 tours across 18 months, she did exactly that. But there is a cost to saving lives in a war zone. A cost that has nothing to do with shrapnel or bullets or physical wounds. Every life you save becomes a weight you carry. Every life you cannot save becomes a weight that tries to crush you. Kate was carrying more weight than anyone knew. At night in her bunk, when the adrenaline finally wore off, she lay awake cataloging faces. 47 saves. She knew every name, every hometown, every detail they had shared while she worked to keep them alive. But she also knew the 12 who did not make it. Private Chen with the sucking chest wound who coded on the table. Corporal Williams, who bled out from an IED before the medevac could arrive. Sergeant Rodriguez, who was hit during a rescue operation and died in her arms while she performed CPR on sand that was more blood than dirt. 12 faces she would never forget. 12 failures that outweighed 47 successes in the arithmetic of guilt. But none of them broke her. That honor belonged to Hospital Corpsman 3rd Class Ryan O'Brien. Ryan transferred to Phoebe Ashford in January of Kate's second tour. He was 24 years old with dark hair and an easy smile that seemed absurd in a combat zone. Kate's first impression was that he was too young, too optimistic, too trusting. She gave him 2 weeks before the reality of war medicine would strip away that smile and leave him as hollow as the rest of them. She was wrong. Ryan O'Brien had a gift. He could walk into the medical tent after losing a patient and still find something to smile about. Could make terrible jokes during the worst moments, jokes that should not have been funny, but somehow were because the alternative was screaming. Everyone called him Chef because he talked constantly about culinary school, about the restaurant he was going to open when he got home, about recipes his mother sent from Seattle. He collected care package recipes, kept them in a battered notebook he carried everywhere, convinced the mess sergeant to let him experiment with spices when supplies came through, made coffee bearable by adding cocoa powder from MRE rations. Small acts of creation in a place designed for destruction. Kate hated that he made her laugh, hated that he was worming his way past her defenses with his stupid jokes and his stubborn optimism. She had spent months building walls specifically to prevent this kind of connection. You do not survive war by caring about people. You survive by staying detached, staying professional, staying alone. Ryan ignored her walls completely. 3 weeks after he arrived, they were on midnight shift together. Rocket attacks had everyone awake. The night sky lit up with tracer fire. Neither of them could sleep, so they sat outside the medical tent, drinking Ryan's enhanced coffee and watching explosions in the distance like the world's worst fireworks show. So what are you doing after this? Morrison. Kate stared into her coffee mug. Nursing, probably. Civilian hospital. Somewhere quiet. You would be wasted in a regular ER. You are too good at this. This is keeping people alive in places where they should not have to die. I want to keep people alive in places where dying is not supposed to happen. That is the whole point of peace. Ryan was quiet for a moment. Fair enough, but you know there is no such thing as normal injuries, right? Pain is pain. Trauma is trauma. You will still be saving lives, just in a different context. Kate looked at him. His face was serious for once, stripped of the usual humor. Maybe, but at least I will not have to watch them die from bombs. She did not say what she really meant. At least I will not have to care so much. At least I can go back to being alone. But Ryan was already in, already past the walls, already becoming the kind of friend that would hurt to lose. 4 months later, they were sitting in the same spot watching another sunrise. 7 days before their scheduled rotation home. 7 days until they both got to leave this place forever. Ryan pulled out his battered recipe notebook, started talking about his restaurant plan. Small place, he said. Maybe 20 tables. Focus on Pacific Northwest cuisine, fresh ingredients, seasonal menus. His eyes lit up when he talked about it. Kate realized with uncomfortable clarity that she had never seen him this animated about anything except food. I am serious about the investor thing, Morrison. 5 years from now, when I open that place, you are going in with me. I am a terrible cook, Ryan. That is why I cook, and you keep the customers alive when they choke on fish bones. Perfect partnership. Kate laughed, despite herself. You have this whole thing planned out. 7 days until we are out of here. Got to have something to look forward to. He paused, then added more quietly. We are both making it home, Kate. Both of us. I am not losing you, and you are not losing me. That is the deal. She wanted to tell him not to say things like that. Wanted to explain that making promises in war zones was asking the universe to break them. But he looked so certain, so convinced that willpower alone could overcome odds and explosions and all the random violence that killed good people for no reason. So instead, she just nodded. Deal. They shook on it like it was a binding contract. Like belief could make it true. 6 days later, Ryan O'Brien was dead. The mission was supposed to be routine. Escort duty for a supply convoy running between FOB Ashford and a smaller outpost 15 kilometers north. Low threat assessment. Cleared route. Standard protocol. Kate was in Vehicle 3. Ryan was in Vehicle 1 lead position, which meant he got to the danger first. The IED was buried at an intersection the convoy had crossed 24 times in the previous month. Professionally placed, expertly concealed, victim-operated pressure plate trigger. It detonated directly under Ryan's vehicle at 13:47 hours local time. Kate was watching through the rear window when the world exploded. First, there was light, pure white light that seemed to erase everything. Then sound delayed by distance. But when it hit, it was thunder and earthquake, and the end of everything compressed into one moment. The shockwave rocked Vehicle 3 hard enough to crack the windshield. Then smoke and dust, and the sight of Vehicle 1 no longer recognizable as a vehicle. Just twisted, burning metal and parts that used to be whole. Kate was out and running before her vehicle had fully stopped. She heard Major Santos screaming at her to wait for clearance. Secondary devices. Possible standard protocol was to secure the area first. She did not care. Ryan was in that wreckage. Nothing else mattered. The heat was intense. Metal burned her hands when she grabbed the twisted door frame. Smoke choked her lungs. She crawled into wreckage that was still settling, still collapsing, still burning. Her medical bag caught on something and tore. She left it and kept moving. She found him pinned under the dashboard. Both legs crushed beneath metal and steering column. Blood everywhere pooling beneath him, soaking through his uniform faster than physics should allow. The smell of copper and burning rubber and something worse. Kate's training took over, hands moving automatically even though her mind was screaming, assessing injuries. Catastrophic hemorrhage from both femoral arteries. Internal bleeding probably. Broken ribs visible through torn uniform. Sucking chest wound on the left side. Shock setting in, skin pale and clammy. Prognosis incompatible with life. But Kate had saved 47 people. She could save 48. Tourniquet on the right leg. Pulled tighter than it should go until the bleeding slowed. Tourniquet on the left leg, but the angle was wrong. The metal in the way, she could not get proper pressure. IV line in his right arm, shaking hands, missing the vein on the first attempt, getting it on the second. Pressure on his chest, both hands, blood pulsing between her fingers with each heartbeat. Ryan, stay with me. Medevac is coming. 3 minutes, just hold on. His eyes opened, found hers. He knew. She saw it in his face, knew what she was refusing to accept. Kate. His voice was wet, blood at his lips. Shut up. Save your breath. You are going to make it. That is the deal, remember. We both make it home. Tell my mom. He coughed. More blood. Tell her I was not scared. You are going to tell her yourself. Kate's voice was fierce, commanding the voice she used when she needed Marines to obey without question. That is an order, Chef. Stay with me. He tried to smile. It came out as more of a grimace. Tell her I thought about her. Tell her I was not scared. Kate kept doing compressions even though she could feel his ribs breaking under her hands. Kept pressure on wounds that were too big to close. Kept fighting death even though death had already won, and they both knew it. The medevac helicopter landed 45 seconds later, rotors kicking up dust and debris. Flight medics running toward them with proper equipment and experience, and everything Kate did not have. Ryan died while she was still performing CPR, still refusing to stop, still insisting through tears and dust and denial that he was going to make it. Morrison, he is gone. The flight medic's hand on her shoulder, gentle but firm. You need to let go. Kate kept going. Compressions, breaths, compressions. One more try. Just one more. Corporal Morrison. Major Santos's voice command authority cutting through everything. Stand down. That is an order. Kate's hands stopped, hovered over Ryan's chest, fell to her sides. She stared at his face, at his eyes, that would never light up talking about restaurants at blood, that was already cooling because hearts only beat in living bodies. The other corpsmen moved in to process the remains. That was the term they used. Remains. Like Ryan was already gone already, just pieces instead of a person. Kate sat back in the wreckage. Her hands were shaking now. Her whole body shaking. Someone was pulling at her arm, trying to get her to move to clear the area so they could do their job. She didn't move. That was when she noticed the pain. Her left leg was on fire. She looked down and saw blood, her blood soaking through her uniform pants from mid-thigh down. Shrapnel from the IED had torn through her femur. She had been bleeding the entire time she was trying to save Ryan and had not even felt it. Morrison, you are hit. The corpsman's voice changed urgent now. We need to get you out of here. I do not care. You are going into shock. Move now, or I carry you. Kate let them pull her from the wreckage. Let them lay her on a stretcher. Let them cut away her pants and pack the wound and start IV lines. She stared at the sky while they worked. Clear blue. Beautiful day for people to die. The field surgeon at the aid station stabilized her, told her the shrapnel was too deep to remove safely in a combat zone. They could take it out stateside. She refused. Leave it, she said, her voice flat and distant. Just leave it. Why would you want to keep it? Because I deserve it. She spent 3 days at the field hospital before they medically evacuated her to Landstuhl. The Navy psychologist came by her bed and asked the standard questions. How are you feeling? Any thoughts of self-harm? Do you want to talk about what happened? Kate stared at the ceiling. I saved 47 people. Why could he not be 48? The IED was professionally placed. No one could have prevented it. I should have been faster. Should have gotten him out sooner. Should have stopped the bleeding. You did everything possible. You were wounded yourself and did not stop trying. It was not enough. The psychologist made notes, recommended continued counseling stateside, suggested Kate might benefit from talking to other service members who had experienced similar loss. Kate nodded and agreed to whatever would get the woman to leave. 2 weeks later, Kate requested discharge. Major Santos tried to talk her out of it. "You are one of the best combat medics we have, Morrison. The Corps needs people like you." "I cannot do this anymore," Kate said. "Cannot watch them die anymore. Cannot carry any more faces." "What will you do, nursing?" "Civilian hospital. Somewhere people do not die from bombs." What she meant was somewhere she could keep distance. Somewhere she would not care enough to break when the inevitable happened. Somewhere she could survive by staying alone. The Navy granted her honorable discharge in September. They gave her a medal for valor during the convoy attack, gave her disability benefits for the leg injury, gave her a handshake and a thank you for your service, and sent her back to a world that did not understand what she had seen. Kate Morrison left Afghanistan with shrapnel in her femur and Ryan's blood on a uniform she burned the day she got home. She left with 47 saves that did not matter because of one loss that outweighed them all. She left promising herself she would never care that much about anyone ever again. Never get close enough that losing them would destroy her. For 8 years, she kept that promise, worked her shifts at St. Catherine's, saved lives with clinical competence and emotional distance, went home alone, built walls higher than anyone could climb, until a Tuesday afternoon when 3 armed men walked into a diner and a young Marine in desert camouflage sat at the counter eating apple pie he could not taste, and Kate Morrison's body remembered what her mind had spent 8 years trying to forget. She remembered how to assess threats in microseconds, remembered how to calculate angles and distances and probabilities faster than thought, remembered what it felt like to be the only thing standing between a fellow warrior and death. And in that moment, the promise she made 8 years ago shattered completely. Because in the split second before Tyler Bennett's finger pulled that trigger, Kate Morrison saw exactly what was going to happen. The lead gunman swept his AR-15 across the diner with professional precision. His movements carried military training Kate recognized immediately. The way he cleared corners, the way he held the weapon, the stance that spoke of drill instructors and muscle memory. This was not some amateur with a gun. This was someone who knew what he was doing, which made him infinitely more dangerous. His voice cut through the frozen silence like a blade. "Cash register. Now. Nobody moves and nobody gets hurt." Tyler Bennett was 34 years old, dishonorably discharged from the Marine Corps 3 years ago for theft, spiraled downward through bad choices and worse company until armed robbery seemed like the only option left. He still moved like a Marine, even though he had lost the right to call himself one. Still carried the training, even though he had abandoned the honor. Behind him stood Carson Webb, 28, shaking so badly the barrel of his handgun trembled in his grip. This was his first armed robbery. His hands were slick with sweat inside latex gloves. His breathing came too fast, too shallow. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that they needed to leave, that something terrible was about to happen. His finger rested too close to the trigger. Way too close. The third man, Devin Pierce, twitched and jerked with the erratic energy of someone high on methamphetamine. 26 years old. Criminal record stretching back to his teens. Shotgun in his hands, but no discipline in his movements. He laughed high-pitched and manic at the terror on people's faces. For exactly 3 seconds, nobody moved. The human brain struggles to process sudden violence. It searches desperately for explanations, for reasons, for ways to make sense of the impossible. In those 3 seconds, every person in that diner was trapped in that struggle. Every person except 2. Kate's hand had already released her coffee mug. Her body had already shifted forward in the booth. Because 8 years ago in the deserts of Afghanistan, she had been trained to recognize that fraction of a second for what it was. The moment before hell breaks loose. At the counter, Marcus Hayes' hand moved automatically toward his hip, muscle memory reaching for a sidearm that was 8,000 miles away. His body remembered being armed. His mind had not caught up to the fact that he was a civilian, now sitting in a diner in North Carolina, eating pie. Kate saw it happening, saw Hayes's hand move, saw Tyler Bennett's eyes track the movement, saw Bennett recognize what it meant. Another trained fighter, a threat that needed neutralizing. She saw Bennett's weapon pivot toward Hayes. Then Martha Hollis gasped. Just a small sound, barely audible, the kind of noise someone makes when fear finally breaks through shock. But in the tense silence of that diner, it was loud enough. Carson Webb flinched, his finger twitched, the gunshot exploded through the diner like a thunderclap in a closet. The bullet punched through the acoustic ceiling tile directly above the counter. Fragments rained down on Hayes's desert camouflage white dust, coating his shoulders like snow. The sound was impossibly loud in the confined space, echoing and re-echoing off walls and windows and the inside of skulls. Ears rang, hearts hammered. Time fractured into freeze frames of pure terror. Martha screamed high and piercing. George wrapped his arms around his wife, covering her with his body, the way he had learned to do in air raid drills as a child. Beth's hand flew to her mouth. The coffee pot she was holding slipped from her fingers and shattered on the linoleum floor, hot liquid spreading in a dark stain. The Brennan brothers dove under their table. Construction workers built solid, but violence reduces everyone to the same instinctive need for cover. Mike pulled Tommy down with him, both of them scrambling to get as low as possible to make themselves small. Frank Chen slid from his counterstool and dropped to the floor in one fluid movement. Vietnam reflexes still sharp after 50 years. His newspaper scattered across the checkered tile. His coffee mug tipped over brown liquid running between the black and white squares. Maggie Sullivan behind the counter raised both hands, slowly palms out, fingers spread. 67 years old. She had lived through the civil rights movement, through recessions and recoveries, through the slow, steady accumulation of years that taught you when to fight and when to survive. This was a surviving moment. Her hands stayed steady, even though her heart was trying to break through her ribs. Tyler Bennett spun on Carson, rage and fear mixing in his voice. "What the fuck, Carson? What the actual fuck? I did not mean to." Carson's voice was shaking as badly as his hands. She made a noise. "I just reacted." Devin Pierce was laughing again, that high manic sound that came from chemicals flooding his system. His shotgun swung in wide arcs, no discipline, no control. "This is great. This is fucking great. Look at them." But Kate Morrison was not looking at the gunman. She was looking at Marcus Hayes. Hayes had frozen when the shot went off. For 1 second, he was back in Afghanistan, back in a place where gunshots meant incoming, meant contact, meant grab your weapon and return fire. His body was coiled, ready to move, every muscle tensed for combat. And Devin Pierce's shotgun was tracking toward him. Kate's mind performed calculations at a speed that bypassed conscious thought. Devin was high on predictable finger on the trigger. Hayes was in uniform trained, represented a threat. Devin would fire. Not because of strategy or tactics, just because chaos felt good to someone whose brain chemistry was completely scrambled. Distance from Kate's booth to the counter 12 feet. Time until Devin's finger closed on the trigger, 1.5 seconds, maybe less. Angle of fire, direct line to Hayes's center mass. Outcome: if Kate did not move, Hayes would die. This Marine who had survived deployment, who had made it home, who was sitting in a diner trying to remember what peace tasted like. He would die eating apple pie because his body remembered war better than it remembered safety. 47 saves in Afghanistan. 1 catastrophic loss. 8 years of running from that failure. 8 years of keeping distance, staying alone, refusing to care. And in 1.5 seconds, all of that meant nothing. Kate Morrison's voice cut through the chaos with command authority she had not used in 8 years. "Get down." Not a suggestion, not a request. An order delivered in the tone that made Marines obey without thinking, the voice that carried across mortar fire and saved lives when seconds mattered. Every head in the diner turned toward her. Tyler Bennett's weapon swung in her direction. Devin's shotgun paused mid-swing. Carson's shaking hands steadied for just a moment because human brains respond to command presence even in the middle of panic. And Kate was already moving. She launched herself out of the booth with explosive power. Her left leg screamed in protest, old shrapnel grinding against bone, but she ignored it. 12 feet to cover. No time for hesitation. No time for doubt. Just movement, pure and committed. Hayes saw her coming, his eyes widened in recognition and understanding and horror. He saw what she was about to do, and his mouth opened to shout no to stop her, to tell her he was trained for this and she should get to safety. But Kate was a combat medic with 2 tours and 47 saves and 8 years of survivor guilt driving her forward. She was faster. She hit him like a linebacker executing a perfect tackle. Professional form, shoulder into his chest, arms wrapping around his torso. All 140 pounds of her weight driving him backward and down. They went airborne for a fraction of a second, suspended in the moment between action and consequence. Then they crashed to the floor behind the counter. Kate's body spreading over his, making herself as wide as possible, covering his head with her arms, shielding his chest with her torso, protecting his vital organs with her own body. Beneath her, Hayes tried to push her off, tried to reverse their positions because every instinct said protect the civilian, protect the woman, protect anyone but yourself. Kate's grip tightened, her voice in his ear fierce and absolute. Stay down. That is an order, Marine. Devin Pierce's shotgun fired, but his aim was off. The meth made his hands shake. Kate's sudden movement surprised him. Instead of the shotgun, he grabbed the 9mm from his waistband, aimed at the pile of Marine and woman behind the counter, pulled the trigger. The bullet traveled the 12 feet between them in .01 seconds. Kate felt the impact before she heard the sound. Felt it slam into her left thigh like being hit with a baseball bat made of fire. The bullet entered through the back of her leg, tore through the bicep femoris muscle, punched into her femur, the bone already weakened by 8-year-old shrapnel. The femur shattered. Not a clean break. 3 separate fracture points radiating outward from the impact site. The bullet fragmented, sending secondary projectiles through muscle tissue. It exited through the front of her thigh, carrying bone fragments with it. Pain exploded through Kate's nervous system with such intensity that her vision whited out for a second. Every nerve ending in her leg screamed damage, critical damage, catastrophic injury. Her brain flooded with adrenaline and endorphins and the desperate chemical cocktail that lets people function through trauma. She did not scream. Her jaw clenched so hard her teeth ground together. Tears involuntarily filled her eyes, but she made no sound. Because sound meant distraction. Sound meant losing focus. Sound meant failing to hold on to Hayes. And she could feel him trying to push her off. Feel his hands on her shoulders, his body trying to roll them, trying to get himself between her and the gunman, because that was what he was trained to do. Stay down, she whispered through gritted teeth. Her voice was steady despite the pain trying to tear her apart. Do not move. That is an order. Blood pooled beneath them on the white tile floor. Warm, spreading, too fast. Kate's blood pumping from the entry and exit wounds with each heartbeat. The tile was cold. The blood was hot. The contrast was strange, distant, like it was happening to someone else's body. Hayes's voice breaking. You are shot. Let me help you. Check the others first. You are bleeding out. Then stop arguing and stay still. Her grip on his shoulders never loosened. She kept herself spread over him, maximum coverage, making her body a shield. If Devin fired again, he would have to shoot through her first. That was acceptable. That was the job. That was what you did for your brothers. What is your name? She asked. Because keeping him talking meant keeping him still. meant keeping him alive. Corporal Marcus Hayes. His voice was shaking. "Ma'am, you need to let me up. You need help." "Well, Marcus," she said, and even through the pain, her voice carried that calm competence that had saved 47 lives. "You are going to be fine. I have got you." Tyler Bennett's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to go. Police are coming. Move, move, move." Sirens in the distance growing louder. Someone had hit a silent alarm. Maybe Maggie. Maybe Beth. Did not matter. Help was coming, but it was not here yet. Devin was still laughing, still riding the meth high that made him invincible and insane. "I shot her. Did you see that I shot her? And you are about to get caught for murder," Bennett snapped. "Get to the car. Now!" Frank Chen moved. While everyone was focused on Kate and Hayes, while the gunmen were looking at the woman bleeding on the floor, Frank grabbed his ceramic coffee mug from where it had tipped over. Heavy, solid, perfectly weighted. He threw it hard. The mug hit Carson Webb in the face. The ski mask absorbed some of the impact, but the shock was enough. Carson spun, fired wild. The bullet punched into the jukebox. Patsy Cline singing Crazy cut off mid-word, replaced by the sound of shattering glass and sparking electronics. Beth Carter used those precious seconds. She had been frozen near the kitchen door, unable to move, unable to think. But Kate's voice, that command voice, had broken through the paralysis. Beth lunged for the panic button, mounted under the counter. Pressed it hard enough to hurt her thumb. Then she grabbed every dish towel within reach and dropped to her knees beside Kate. "Honey, hold on. Help is coming." Kate's voice was getting distant. "Check the others. Make sure no one else is hit. You have been shot. Others first. Always triage. Always save who you can save." Maggie was already moving to Martha and George. Already checking the Brennan brothers. Already doing what Kate asked, because that tone of voice demanded obedience even from a 67-year-old diner owner. Tyler Bennett made his calculation. Police sirens may be 90 seconds out. Wounded woman witnesses no money. The risk-reward ratio had just collapsed. Carson Devin, we are done. Out the door. Now. Devin wanted to fire again. Wanted to finish what he started. But Bennett grabbed his arm and physically dragged him toward the exit. Carson followed, still dazed from the coffee mug impact. The bell above the door chimed as they left. Cheerful, absurd sound. Engine roaring as the Dodge Charger peeled out of the parking lot. Tires screeching. Then just sirens getting louder and the sound of Kate's breathing shallow and rapid. Hayes finally managed to slide out from under her, finally able to see the damage. The blood soaking through her scrubs, pooling on the floor, so much blood. The wound in her thigh entry and exit bone visible through torn tissue. His basic combat medical training kicked in. Pressure. Stop the bleeding. Keep her conscious. Beth was already there with towels. Frank pulled a tablecloth from the nearest table, clean white cotton. Between the three of them, they packed the wounds, applied pressure. Tried to slow the bleeding that was draining Kate's life onto the checkerboard floor. Kate's vision was blurring at the edges. Sound was getting distant underwater, cold spreading through her body despite the July heat. Shock, her clinical mind noted. Blood loss significant. Femoral artery involvement possible. Hayes's face appeared above her. Young face, scared face, alive face. "Stay with me, ma'am. Help is coming. You are going to be fine." Kate tried to smile. "That is my line. What is your name? I need your name." "Kate. Kate Morrison." "Kate, you are going to be okay. Ambulance is almost here. Tell me you are okay." She could barely get the words out. "Need to know you are okay." "I am okay." Hayes was crying now, could not help it. "I am okay because of you. You saved me." "Good. That is good." Ryan's voice in her memory dying in her arms 8 years ago. Tell her I was not scared. And Kate had not saved him, had failed to be fast enough, good enough. But she had saved Hayes. 48th save. 8 years late, but it counted. It had to count. The darkness pulled at her. She fought to stay conscious, fought to keep her eyes open, fought to see Hayes alive one more time before the black took her. Blue lights flashing through the diner windows, car doors slamming, boots running, radio chatter, Asheville PD officers entering with weapons drawn, securing the scene, getting descriptions. Black Dodge Charger, 3 males armed and dangerous heading north on Highway 74. All units be advised. Paramedics rushing in with equipment and stretchers and the professional calm that emergency workers carry like armor. The lead medic dropped beside Kate. Assessed the wound in seconds. GSW to left femur, significant blood loss, possible arterial involvement. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. Pressure bandage. IV line. Neck brace as a precaution. Ma'am, can you hear me? Ma'am, stay with us. Kate's eyes found his. Corpsman. Navy. 2 tours. The medic's expression changed. Understanding respect. Then you know you are in trouble. Yeah. Kate's voice was barely a whisper. I know. Hayes refused to leave her side. Stood next to the gurney as they loaded her, his uniform soaked with her blood. Paramedics tried to make him stay, needed room to work, but he climbed into the ambulance anyway, and nobody had the heart to stop him. He held her hand the entire ride to St. Catherine's Hospital. Watched the paramedic work, watched the monitor showing her heart rate and blood pressure and oxygen saturation. All the numbers that told the story of a body trying to survive catastrophic trauma. Kate drifted in and out, aware of movement of sirens, of Hayes's voice talking to her, telling her to hold on, telling her she was going to make it, telling her he owed her everything. She heard him pull out his phone, heard him dial, heard him speak to someone with the formal respect that meant he was talking to a superior officer. Major Chen. It is Corporal Hayes. I need to report something. A pause. An ex-Marine nurse just took a bullet for me. She threw herself over me in a diner robbery. She is shot femur critical. She is in the ambulance now. Another pause. Hayes's voice getting stronger, more official. Yes, ma'am. Hospital corpsman 2nd class. 2 tours Afghanistan. She did not hesitate, ma'am. Just moved. She saved my life. One more pause. Then Hayes gave the information that would change everything. St. Catherine's Hospital, Asheville, North Carolina. Yes, ma'am. I will stay with her. He ended the call, squeezed Kate's hand. Kate wanted to tell him not to make a big deal out of this. Wanted to tell him not to call anyone, not to spread the story, to just let her recover in private, the way she had done everything for the past 8 years. But she could not form the words. The darkness was too strong, the blood loss too much. She let it take her, let consciousness slip away, because Hayes was alive, and that was enough. That had to be enough. Behind them, Asheville PD was already coordinating with state police. The Dodge Charger was spotted on Highway 74. Pursuit initiated. Bennett, Webb, and Pierce would be in custody within 8 hours. But that was later. Right now, Kate Morrison was racing toward surgery. Racing toward 6 hours on an operating table. Racing toward a choice between living and dying. And she was too tired to decide which one she wanted more. In her last moment of consciousness, she thought about Ryan. About his letter that she had never received. About the promise he made her make to keep being the person who runs toward danger. She had run today. Run straight into a bullet. Run to save a Marine she did not know. Run toward danger one more time despite 8 years of running away. Ryan would have approved. Then the darkness took her completely, and the real story began. The operating room lights were too bright. Dr. Patricia Warner stood at the scrub sink, watching through the observation window as they wheeled Kate Morrison into the OR. 6 years they had worked together. 6 years of Kate saving patients with ice-cold precision. 6 years of watching her arrive early, stay late, never complain, never connect. Warner had never known Kate was military. The X-rays told the story Warner had missed. Fresh gunshot wound, catastrophic femur shattered in 3 places, bone fragments scattered through muscle tissue. But the old injury visible beneath the new damage. Shrapnel embedded deep at least 8 years old, based on the bone growth around the fragments, Dr. says. Michael Torres, the orthopedic surgeon, joined her at the window. He held up the films to the light. She has been walking on this for how long? Warner's voice was quiet. 8 years. Maybe more. Been working 12-hour shifts in our ER on a combat injury she never mentioned. Torres shook his head slowly. The pain must have been constant. She never said anything. Not once. They scrubbed in together. Warner, because Kate was her nurse, and she would be damned if anyone else led this surgery. Torres, because femur reconstruction was his specialty, and this one would require every bit of his skill. Kate lay on the table, intubated unconscious, her leg elevated and prepped. The anesthesiologist had her under deep monitoring vitals that were holding steady but concerning. Blood pressure lower than ideal, heart rate elevated, body fighting shock and blood loss, and the realization that it had been catastrophically damaged. Warner made the first incision. Blood welled immediately despite the tourniquet. The bullet had torn through tissue with the randomness of high-velocity trauma. Nothing neat, nothing clean. Just destruction. How long is this going to take? The anesthesiologist asked. Torres examined the fracture site. 6 hours, minimum. Maybe more. BP is dropping. Warner looked at the monitor, then at Kate's face, peaceful in unconscious. Give her another unit. We are not losing her. 3 hours into the surgery, Kate crashed. Blood pressure dropped from concerning to critical. Heart rate spiked, then stuttered. The monitors screamed alarms that everyone in the OR felt in their chests. She is coding, the anesthesiologist called out. Starting chest compressions. Warner kept working, hands moving faster, more aggressive. Finding the bleeding source, clamping vessels, stopping the leak that was draining Kate's life. Torres was placing pins with the focused intensity of someone who knew this surgery was the difference between walking and wheelchair, between normal and permanent disability. 8 titanium pins, 2 steel plates, bone graft harvested from her hip to fill the gaps where bone had been pulverized. BP stabilizing, the anesthesiologist reported. After 2 minutes, that felt like 20. She is coming back. Warner allowed herself one breath of relief, then kept working. 4 more hours. 4 hours of meticulous reconstruction. 4 hours of putting together a leg that had been shattered, protecting someone else. By the time they closed, the sun was rising over Asheville. Kate had survived the surgery. Whether she would walk without significant impairment was a question only time would answer. In the waiting room, Marcus Hayes sat in the same blood-soaked uniform he had been wearing for 10 hours. Hospital staff had offered him scrubs 3 times. He refused each time. This is her blood, he told the nurse. I am keeping it until I know she makes it. Frank Chen arrived at midnight, walked into the waiting room still shaking slightly, sat down next to Hayes without asking permission. They sat in silence for 20 minutes before Frank spoke. I was in Vietnam, 1st Cavalry 68 and 69. Saw a lot of brave men, a lot of heroes. Hayes did not respond, kept staring at the surgery board at Kate's name next to operating room 3, red light still on. Frank continued, but what she did, that is the purest thing I ever saw. No hesitation, just action. That is what warriors look like. She knew I was military, Hayes said. Called me by rank. How did she know? Because she is one of us, son. Military bearing does not lie. She recognized you the same way you would have recognized her if you had been looking. Beth and Maggie arrived at 1 in the morning, both crying, both needing to know if Kate would survive. Hayes told them what he knew, which was nothing, except that surgery was ongoing and no news was good news. Beth collapsed into a chair. She told me to check the others first. She had been shot, and she was still trying to do her job. Maggie wiped her eyes with a napkin embroidered with the diner's logo. That is Kate, always taking care of everyone but herself. 6 years she has been coming to my place. Never knew her story. Never knew she carried that kind of courage. Did any of you know she was military? Hayes asked. They all shook their heads. She hid it, Frank said. On purpose. Seen it before. Warriors who want to forget the war. Build new lives as civilians. Keep the past buried. Until the moment demands they remember, Hayes finished. Exactly. At 9:30 that night, 16 hours after Kate entered surgery, Hayes pulled out his phone. He had been thinking about this call for hours, debating whether it was his place, whether Kate would want the attention, whether he was overstepping. Then he remembered her body covering his, remembered her blood soaking through his uniform, remembered her voice calm and commanding, even while bleeding out. Stay down. That is an order, Marine. She had saved him without hesitation. The least he could do was make sure her own people knew about it. He dialed his commanding officer. Major Sarah Chen answered on the second ring. Corporal Hayes, you are on leave. This better be an emergency. Ma'am, it is. Hayes's voice was steady despite the emotion threatening to crack it. I need to report an incident. What happened? Are you injured? No, ma'am. Because a Marine nurse threw herself over me and took the bullet. Silence on the line. Then Chen's voice sharp and focused. Say that again, Corporal. Hayes explained. The diner. The robbery. The woman who moved faster than thought, faster than fear, who covered him completely and took the shot meant for him. She is in surgery now, ma'am. 6 hours so far. Femur shattered. She said she was a corpsman. Navy. 2 tours. What is her name? Kate Morrison, ma'am. Hold one, Corporal. Hayes heard typing in the background. Heard Chen's breathing change. Heard the moment she found what she was looking for in the personnel database. Hospital Corpsman 2nd Class, Catherine Elizabeth Morrison. Chen's voice had changed. Softer, reverent. 2 tours, Kandahar Province, 2016 to 2017. 47, confirmed saves, Silver Star recommendation. Medical discharge, September 2017. Another pause. Jesus, Corporal. Do you know who she is? I do now, ma'am. What hospital? St. Catherine's, Asheville, North Carolina. Stand by, Corporal. This is about to get bigger. Chen ended the call. Immediately dialed Camp Lejeune. Her voice carried the weight of someone delivering news that mattered, news that would spread, news that demanded action. This is Major Sarah Chen, Personnel Division. I need to report an incident involving former corpsman Morrison Catherine. Hospital Corpsman 2nd Class discharge 2017. She explained the situation. Diner robbery. Active duty Marine. Instant response. Bullet to the femur. Critical surgery. The officer on the other end was quiet for a moment. A former Marine took a bullet for active duty. Affirmative. Without hesitation. Spread this. Every Marine needs to know. The story moved through the Marine Corps network like electricity through wire. Camp Lejeune called Camp Pendleton. Pendleton called Quantico. Quantico called 29 Palms. Each base, same reaction. Recognition. Respect. Pride. One of ours saved one of ours. She never stopped being a Marine. We need to do something about this. Within 2 hours, Kate Morrison's name was on a dozen Marine Corps Facebook groups. Someone found a photo of her in uniform from a deployment blog. Someone else found Hayes's service record. The story assembled itself through collective memory and shared databases. Sergeant Mike Williams posted first. His status appeared at 2300 hours, story. Ex-Navy corpsman saves active duty Marine in civilian life. Threw herself over him during armed robbery. Took the bullet meant for him. Currently in surgery. This is what Semper Fi means. The post included Kate's photo. Young face, serious eyes, Navy corpsman uniform. The photo was 8 years old, but the expression was timeless. The look of someone who had seen things, carried things, survived things. 1,500 shares in the first hour. Reddit's military forums picked it up next. Thread title: Former corpsman takes bullet for Marine she does not know. 10,000 upvotes in 2 hours. Comments section exploding with Marines who understood exactly what Kate had done. Understood the instinct that never dies, even when you take off the uniform. This is what Semper Fi means. She is more Marine than half the people I served with. How do we help her? GoFundMe, starting now. Tom Rodriguez, a Marine veteran living in Dallas, created the fundraising page at midnight. Title: Catherine Morrison, Marine Hero. Goal: $50,000 for medical expenses. Description detailed, sourced from Hayes's call to Major Chen, corroborated by news reports already starting to appear. First donation $100 from Rodriguez himself. Within 1 hour, $15,000. Within 3 hours, $50,000. Goal met. By morning, $120,000 from Marines across the country, who had never met Kate Morrison but recognized her as family. Local news picked it up first. Asheville Citizen-Times ran the story at 6 a.m. Local nurse hero in diner robbery. Former combat medic saves Marine. National news followed. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, all running variations of the same story. The details that made it impossible not to care. Former combat medic. 2 tours. 47 saves. 8 years as a civilian. 1 split-second decision. 1 bullet. 1 life saved. Hayes refused every interview request. Talk to her when she wakes up, he told them. This is her story, not mine. But Major Chen was already making plans. She called Sergeant Major Robert Jackson at 0600. Sergeant Major, you heard about Morrison. Whole Corps has heard. What are we doing about it? I am thinking we should visit. How many Marines you thinking? As many as we can get. She earned it. Jackson was quiet for a moment. When is she being discharged? 72 hours probably. Then we have 72 hours to organize. Marines never leave their own behind, Major. Time to remind her she is still one of us. Kate woke to fluorescent lights and the steady beep of monitors. Her mouth was desert dry from intubation. Pain radiated from her leg in waves, dull and throbbing and everywhere. She tried to speak and managed only a whisper. The Marine. Is he? Dr. Warner appeared in her field of vision, smiling with relief. Kate, you are okay. The Marine is fine. Not a scratch. Thanks to you. Kate's eyes closed. Others. Everyone is fine. You were the only one hit. Good. That is good. Warner moved closer. Kate, why did you not tell us? Tell you what? That you were military. That you were a hero before yesterday. Kate's voice was barely audible. Was not relevant. The hell it was not. You have been carrying shrapnel in that leg for years, working 16-hour shifts on a combat injury. And you never said anything. Lots of people carry things, Kate said. Keep working. Normal. Warner shook her head. Kate, you are not normal. You are extraordinary. And there are about 40 people in our waiting room who want to see you. Kate groaned. Please no. Too late. You are famous. The flowers started arriving before Kate was out of recovery. First bouquet from the St. Catherine's ER team. Card reading, our hero. Second, from Frank Chen. Simple message. You remind me why we serve. Third, from Hayes with no words, just the Marine Corps emblem on the card. By the end of day 140, arrangements crowded her room. Kate stared at them with the uncomfortable expression of someone who had spent 8 years avoiding exactly this kind of attention. Day 2 began with Hayes appearing at 0800 sharp. Clean uniform finally, carrying a book, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. "Thought you might want something to read," he said. Kate looked at him from the hospital bed. "Corporal, you do not need to be here." "With respect, ma'am? Yes, I do." He sat in the corner chair, made clear he was not leaving. They sat in silence for an hour, Kate too exhausted to protest, Hayes too determined to be moved. Finally, Kate spoke. "Why did you call your CO?" Hayes met her eyes. "Because what you did needed to be known." "I do not want recognition. Just wanted to help." "Too late, ma'am. The whole Corps knows, and they are planning something." Kate closed her eyes. "Please tell me they are not." Hayes smiled slightly. "Would not dream of spoiling the surprise." Frank arrived that afternoon, brought coffee from Maggie's diner in a thermos because hospital coffee was terrible and Kate deserved better. He sat beside her bed without asking permission. "Old soldiers do not need permission." "Want to tell you something," he said after a while. "Came home from Vietnam in '69. Carried guilt for 54 years. Survivor's guilt. Why me and not them?" Kate understood. Same weight she had been carrying since Ryan died. "Watched you on that floor," Frank continued. "Covering that boy. Refusing to let him up even though you were bleeding out. And I finally understood." "Understood what?" "Why we serve. Not for country. Not for flags. For them. The person next to us. You showed me that. So thank you." Kate felt tears threatening, swallowed them back. "You do not need to thank me." "Yes, I do. You gave me permission to let go of 54 years of guilt. That matters." Beth and Maggie came that evening, brought soup, Maggie's recipe, because hospital food was garbage and Kate needed real food. Beth was still shaking when she entered the room. "I keep seeing it," Beth said. "The gun, the blood, you on the floor." Kate's voice was gentle. "That is normal. Give it time. How do you deal with it?" "Not well. But I keep going." Maggie squeezed Kate's hand. "We are putting up a memorial at the diner. For what you did." "Please do not," Kate started. "Already done," Maggie interrupted. "You remind people that heroes exist. That is worth remembering." Day 3 brought the visitor Kate had been simultaneously hoping for and dreading for 8 years. The knock on the door was soft, hesitant. The woman who entered was small, 68 years old, with silver hair and kind eyes that carried deep sadness. She held an envelope with the careful reverence of someone carrying something precious. "Catherine Morrison?" she asked. Kate sat up straighter despite the pain. "Yes. My name is Linda O'Brien. I am Ryan's mother." The world stopped. 8 years of grief, 8 years of guilt, 8 years of carrying Ryan's death like a stone in her chest. All of it came crashing down in that moment. "Mrs. O'Brien." Kate's voice broke. "I am so sorry. I tried everything. I could not save him." Linda moved to the bedside. I know you did. I should have been faster. Should have stopped the bleeding. Should have." Linda took her hand. "Kate, I have been looking for you since Ryan died. Trying to find you. To give you something." She held out the envelope. Weathered. Creased from 8 years of being carried. Kate's name on the front in handwriting she would recognize anywhere. "He sent this home the week before he died," Linda said quietly. "Told me if anything happened to find you. To make sure you got it." Kate's hands were shaking too badly to open it. Linda helped her, unfolded the pages. And Kate read words her best friend had written 8 years ago, knowing he might not come home. The letter was everything Kate needed to hear and had been unable to forgive herself enough to believe. Ryan's voice clear on the page. His insistence that whatever happened was not her fault. His demand that she stop carrying his death as a weight. His order that she keep being the person who runs toward danger, who fights for strangers, who refuses to give up on anyone. Kate read it once, then again. Then Linda was holding her, while 8 years of grief finally found its way out. Kate sobbed the way she had not let herself sob since Ryan died in her arms. Loud, ugly, uncontrollable tears that came from a place deeper than words. "He was not scared," Linda whispered. "His last words were about you. Told the chaplain to tell you that you did everything right." Kate could not speak. Could only cry and hold the letter and let Linda hold her the way a mother holds a wounded child. After Kate had no more tears, Linda spoke again. "He would be so proud of you, of what you did in that diner, of who you became. You kept his promise, Kate. You kept being the person who runs toward danger." Kate looked at her. "I failed him." Linda shook her head firmly. "You saved 47 others. And 3 days ago, you saved another one. That is Ryan's legacy. Through you." That evening, Nurse Jessica appeared in Kate's doorway looking overwhelmed. "Kate, you need to know something. There are about 200 people in our lobby." Kate blinked. "What? Marines? Veterans? News crews? Your story went viral. Everyone knows what you did." Jessica showed her phone. Kate's face on news sites. Semper, Kate trending on social media. GoFundMe total now at $283,000. Kate stared at the screen. "Oh God. Hospital has been getting calls all day. Morning shows, newspapers. Everyone wants to interview you. No. No interviews. No statements. Just no. There is something else. Major Sarah Chen called from Camp Lejeune. Said she will be here tomorrow morning with a few Marines who want to meet you." Kate felt dread settle in her stomach. "How many is a few?" Jessica smiled. She didn't say exactly, but Kate, when Marines say a few, they usually mean more than you think. That night, Kate could not sleep despite the pain medication. She held Ryan's letter and read it over and over. His words about keeping going, about being the person who runs toward danger, about not letting his death make her small. She had done that. For 8 years, she did that in the ER. 3 days ago, she did it in a diner. Maybe Ryan was right. Maybe she had kept her promise without realizing it. Tomorrow, she would face whatever a few Marines meant. But tonight, holding Ryan's letter at Morrison finally felt like maybe she could forgive herself. Maybe saving Hayes counted. Maybe it all counted. Maybe she was not a failure after all. Day 4 began with a sound that did not belong in a quiet suburban neighborhood at 6 in the morning. The rhythmic thunder of boots on pavement. Dozens of boots, marching in perfect synchronization. The sound every Marine knows in their sleep, the sound that gets into your bones during basic training and never leaves. Kate woke to it. Her eyes opened in confusion, then recognition, then disbelief. She struggled out of bed, grabbed her crutches, hobbled to the window. Each step sent pain shooting through her reconstructed leg, but she barely noticed. She pulled the curtain aside and stopped breathing. Her street was filled with Marines. 50 or more in dress blues medals gleaming in the early morning sun, standing in perfect formation. More vehicles arriving. More Marines stepping out joining the ranks. Neighbors on their porches watching in silence, some with hands over mouths, some openly crying. Kate's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the crutch. This could not be real. She closed her eyes, opened them. They were still there. She struggled into her bathrobe, gripped her crutches, began the agonizing journey to her front door. 5 minutes to cross her small house. Her hand trembled on the doorknob. One deep breath. Then she opened it. The moment those Marines saw her, saw the woman who had taken a bullet for one of their brothers, they snapped to attention as one. The sound of it like thunder. Perfect synchronization. Absolute respect. Corporal Marcus Hayes stepped forward from the formation. "Dress blue's perfect face, serious but warm." "Ma'am." Kate was crying before she could stop herself. "Corporal Hayes, you did not need to do this. Ma'am, with respect, We did. And there is more. Major Sarah Chen stepped forward, commander-bearing voice carrying across the quiet street. Marines present arms. 50 hands snapped to salute simultaneously. The sound of it, the unified movement, the precision hit Kate like a physical force. She tried to salute back, nearly fell over on her crutches. Hayes caught her, steadied her. "At ease before you fall over," Major Chen said. Her voice carried emotion barely held in check. "Catherine Elizabeth Morrison. 8 years ago, you took off the uniform, but you never stopped being a Marine. 4 days ago, you proved that in a way that humbles us all. You did not hesitate, did not calculate, did not consider the cost. You saw a fellow Marine in danger, and you acted. That is the Marine Corps' highest ideal, embodied in 3 seconds of pure courage. Marines never leave our own behind. You honored that principle when it mattered most. Today, we are here to tell you something equally important. Marines do not abandon our own either. Not when you are wounded, not when you are recovering, not ever. You may have left active duty, but active duty never left you. You are still one of us. You will always be one of us." The presentations began, Marines stepping forward one by one with gifts that carried meaning deeper than objects. Sergeant James Rodriguez presented a folded American flag. "Flown over Camp Lejeune in your honor, ma'am." Kate took it with trembling hands. "I do not deserve this. Ma'am, you earned it 4 days ago, and every day before that." Corporal Amanda Reeves presented a shadow box containing Kate's old unit patch. "From the Marines you saved in Kandahar, ma'am. They wanted you to know they remember." Kate saw the plaque. 47 names engraved. Dates, ranks, units. All the lives she had saved. All the people who went home because of her. She was crying, it too hard to speak. Gunnery Sergeant Mike Torres presented a handmade quilt. "Marine families made this, ma'am. Every square is a different family. Every square says thank you." Kate unfolded it. Embroidered messages covered every inch. Hero, sister, guardian angel, one of us. The weight of it felt like love made tangible. Hayes stepped forward last. "Ma'am, the Marine Corps could not organize fast enough, but individual Marines could." He handed her an envelope. Inside a check for $447,000. Kate stared at it. "I cannot accept this. Already deposited in an account set up for you, ma'am. For medical expenses, for recovery, for whatever you need." 287,000 Marines donated, from privates to generals. "Because you are family." Major Chen spoke again. "Marines order arms." The salutes dropped in perfect unison. Then one by one they approached, not as a formation, as individuals, each thanking Kate personally. Hayes first. "I owe you my life. I will never forget." Kate gripped his hand. "You do not owe me anything. Ma'am, with respect, I owe you everything." It took 90 minutes. 90 minutes of handshakes and hugs and tears. 90 minutes of being told she mattered, she was valued, she was one of them. By the time the last Marine left, Kate was physically and emotionally exhausted. Julia helped her inside. The house was full. Flowers, food gifts, evidence of community and care. Kate collapsed into the new recliner the Marines had delivered, holding Ryan's letter in one hand and the folded flag in the other. For the first time in 8 years, she felt like she belonged somewhere. 6 months later, Kate walked into the Asheville County Courthouse on a cane instead of crutches. The limp was permanent, but she had learned to move with it. The titanium pins were visible under her skin when she walked. She did not hide them. The 3 men who had shattered her femur sat at the defense table in orange jumpsuits. Tyler Bennett, Carson Webb, Devin Pierce. They had been caught within 8 hours. Security footage, witness statements, and a high-speed chase that ended with their charger wrapped around a telephone pole made the case simple. Kate took the witness stand, wore her dress blues, medals on her chest. She wanted them to see exactly who they had tried to kill. The prosecutor's questions were straightforward. Kate's answers were factual, unemotional. She described the robbery, her assessment, her action, the gunshot. Clinical precision, even when discussing her own injury. Ms. Morrison, why did you act? Because Corporal Hayes was in danger. Were you trying to be a hero? No. I was trying to save a life. That is my job. That has always been my job. The defense attorney tried a different angle. You put yourself in unnecessary danger. Kate's voice stayed level. I made a tactical decision based on training and experience. You could have hidden. Let police handle it. Corporal Hayes would be dead if I had waited for police. So you think you are above the law? Kate's eyes hardened. I think protecting the innocent is everyone's responsibility. Judge Patricia Morales delivered the sentences. 25 years for Bennett, 22 for Webb, 20 for Pierce. But before the bailiffs could take them away, Bennett asked to speak. The judge turned to Kate. Ms. Morrison, do you want to hear this? I'd pause. Considered. Yes. Bennett stood. Your Honor. I was a Marine once, dishonorably discharged for theft. Lost everything. When I saw what she did, throwing herself over him, I ran. Not because I was scared of police. I ran because I remembered what it meant to be a Marine. Remembered who I used to be. He looked at Kate. I cannot ask forgiveness, but I wanted you to know. You reminded me. In my worst moment, you showed me who I should have stayed. Kate stood slowly with her cane, walked toward him. Security tensed. Everyone watched. She stopped 3 feet away. It is never too late to find your way back. Even from here, even from prison, the uniform does not make the Marine. The choices do. Make better choices, Bennett. She turned away. Bennett's voice followed her. Semper Fi, ma'am. Kate stopped, looked back over her shoulder. Semper Fi, Marine. 18 months after the shooting, Kate stood in front of 200 people at the opening ceremony for the Catherine Morrison Foundation for Wounded Warriors. The building was small, donated by a local veterans organization. Marine Corps and American flags flanked the entrance. Hayes had left active duty to become director of operations. 6 staff members, all volunteers initially. Mission statement written by Kate herself hung on the wall. We exist to ensure no warrior fights their battles alone. Medical expenses, housing assistance therapy, job training, whatever is needed. No Marine left behind means no Marine left behind. Kate's opening speech was uncomfortable for her. She hated attention, but this mattered more than her discomfort. I did not do anything special in that diner. I just did what any Marine would do. What any Marine should do. Show up when it matters. This foundation is all of us showing up for each other. For always. The first beneficiaries had their stories told. Sergeant Amanda Reeves with new prosthetics, Lance Corporal David Kim with therapy funding, now working as a paramedic. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez with housing assistance and job placement, no longer facing eviction with her 2 kids. Maria spoke last. I did not know who to ask for help. I was drowning. Kate embraced her. You never have to ask. We are family. First-year numbers told the story. 1.2 million raised, 124 veterans helped, housing for 47 families, medical coverage for 89 individuals, therapy for 156, job placements for 34, 0 administrative overhead because everyone volunteered. Hayes thrived in his role. This is my life's purpose, he told Kate one evening while reviewing applications. You do not owe me this, Marcus. It is not debt. It is choice. You showed me what service looks like after the uniform comes off. 2 years after the shooting, Kate started teaching again. Not nursing. Something different. Operation Readiness was a civilian active shooter response program. Free classes, weekly sessions, community center every Saturday morning. 30 students in the first class. Kate introduced herself the same way each time. My name is Kate Morrison, former Navy corpsman. 2 years ago, I was shot protecting a Marine in a diner robbery. You are here because you want to know what to do when violence comes. That is smart. That is responsible. The curriculum was simple: run, hide, fight. But Kate taught something deeper: the psychology of violence, how fear paralyzes, how training creates muscle memory, how deciding now what you will do then makes the difference between survival and tragedy. Violence happens faster than your brain can process. You will not have time to think, only time to act on what you trained yourself to believe. One student stayed after the first session. Olivia Martinez, 22, college student. Can I talk to you? You? They sat alone in the empty room. Olivia's story came out haltingly. Campus shooting last year. 11 dead. She had frozen, watched it happen, could not move. The guilt was consuming her. Kate took her hand. Then you will not freeze again. How do you know? Because now you are choosing differently. Freezing is a response. Running is a response. You are training a new response. And next time, God forbid, there is a next time, you will remember this moment. This choice. 6 months later, Olivia returned unannounced. Kate was mid-lecture when she walked in. Olivia's face was different, steadier, more certain. After class, Olivia told her story. Convenience store night shift, armed robbery 2 nights ago. 8 customers. She got them all into the back room, locked the door, called police. No one hurt. I heard your voice in my head, Olivia said through tears. Do not freeze, act. So I acted. Thank you. Kate was crying too. You saved yourself. I just gave you permission to believe you could. Olivia became an assistant instructor. The program grew. 5 years later, 12 cities across North Carolina. 10,847 people trained. 5 confirmed saves. People who used the training in real emergencies and saved lives because of it. 5 years after the shooting, they gathered at Maggie's diner on the anniversary. Same booth, same table, same people who had been there that day, plus a few who had become family since. The diner had been renovated, but kept reminders. Brass plaque on the wall commemorating Kate's action. The bullet hole preserved behind glass. Photos lining the walls, showing the journey from that terrible Tuesday to today. Kate Hayes, Frank, Beth, Maggie, Linda O'Brien, Olivia Martinez, and Grace Bennett. Tyler's mother invited by Kate, uncomfortable but present. Maggie poured coffee. Every year I work this shift, I remember. The sound. The blood. Thinking you were going to die. Kate smiled. Stubborn Marine genes. Hayes laughed. Stubborn is an understatement, ma'am. Frank spoke quietly. I spent 54 years carrying guilt. Why I survived Vietnam when better men did not. Watching you that day, I finally understood. We survive for them. The people we can still help. Linda held Ryan's photo. He would have loved this. All of you. This family you built. Kate's voice was soft. He built it. Through that letter. Telling me to keep going. Beth wiped her eyes. I still have nightmares. But then I remember you saved us all. Not just Marcus. All of us. Because you showed us what courage looks like. Hayes updated them on foundation numbers. 500th veteran helped last month. Staff now 20 people. Chapters in 6 states. All because of what you started, ma'am. Kate shook her head. What we started. You left active duty for this. Best decision I ever made. Besides eating pie that day. Everyone laughed. The tension broke. They ate together, talked, remembered. Grace Bennett thanked Kate again for visiting Tyler in prison, for giving him hope that redemption was possible. He is different now, Grace said. Really different. Taking classes, helping other inmates. Because you showed him mercy when he deserved judgment. Everyone deserves a chance to find their way back, Kate said simply. That evening, Kate taught her regular Saturday class. 50 students now. The program had grown beyond anything she imagined. She began the same way she always did. Good morning. I am Kate Morrison. 5 years ago, I was shot in a diner robbery protecting a Marine I did not know. People call me a hero. I am not. I am just someone who made a choice in a critical moment. You are here because you want to know what to do when your moment comes. And it will come. The questions came. They always did. Were you scared? Terrified. But I was more afraid of living with myself if I did not act. Fear is normal. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite it. How do you live with the aftermath? The pain, the injury. I remember why I got it. These scars are proof I was where I needed to be. That is not trauma. That is honor. What if we freeze? You will not, because you are deciding now, right now, that when your moment comes, you will show up. Kate walked to the front of the room. Her limp was visible, her cane necessary, but her presence commanded absolute attention. Every one of you will face a moment. A moment where you choose between safety and service, between comfort and courage, between yourself and someone else. In that moment, you will discover who you really are. I am not asking you to be heroes. I am asking you to be human. To remember we are all connected. That stranger's life matters as much as yours. And sometimes protecting them is the most important thing you will ever do. 5 years ago, I threw myself over a Marine I did not know, took a bullet meant for him. It was the easiest decision I ever made, because I knew his life mattered, that he deserved to go home, that someone somewhere was waiting for him. So when your moment comes, remember this. You are capable of more courage than you think, more sacrifice than you imagine, more love than you have ever shown. All you have to do is choose it. The room erupted in applause. Standing ovation. Kate stood there, same limp, same scars, same warrior spirit that had never died, even when she thought it had. Class dismissed. Go out there and be the person someone needs when their world falls apart. Be the person who shows up. Always show up. That evening, Kate sat on her porch, watching the Blue Ridge Mountains catch the sunset. Her leg ached. It always would. She held Ryan's letter worn from 5 years of carrying and the photo from the Marine's ceremony. Hayes arrived with dinner, Thai food. Their weekly tradition, they ate in comfortable silence. Finally, Hayes spoke. Do you ever regret it? Regret what? That day, taking the shot, the pain, everything that came after. Kate did not hesitate. Never. Not once. I regret that you had to. But I am grateful you did. I think about it every day, ma'am. About how everything had to align for us both, to be there at that exact moment. Kate smiled. I do not believe in fate, Marcus, but I believe in duty. And that day, my duty was clear. The sun set behind the mountains, painting everything gold and purple. 2 warriors, different generations bound by one moment that changed everything. Kate holding Ryan's letter, Hayes wearing his tattoo, Kate's blood type, the date Semper Fi. Kate's final thought was simple. Ryan had told her to keep being the person who runs toward danger. She had. She would continue. Because warriors do not retire. They just find new battles, new people to protect, new ways to serve. The uniform does not make the Marine. The choice does. And Kate Morrison chooses service every day for the rest of her life. Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.